My daughter said it so casually that for a second, I thought I had misunderstood her. I was standing in my kitchen with one hand wrapped around a coffee mug and the other holding the invitation she had mailed me 3 weeks earlier. Her wedding anniversary dinner was supposed to be that Saturday, a small family gathering at a private dining room in downtown Charleston. Nothing extravagant, just family, good food, old stories, and a chance for everyone to be together. I had already bought a new dress. I had even made a lemon cake because my daughter, Emily, always said it tasted like the cake I used to make when she was little. So when she called and told me not to come, I laughed nervously. Did something change? There was a pause. Then she whispered, "No, it's just that David thinks, well, he thinks it would be more comfortable for everyone." The words hit me harder than I expected. More comfortable? Another pause. "Mom, please don't make this harder." Then she hung up. I stood there staring at my phone. I had raised Emily alone after her father walked out when she was 9. I had worked 2 jobs, skipped vacations, worn the same coat for nearly a decade, and emptied what little savings I had so she could attend the college she wanted. And now, somehow, my own daughter was telling me that my presence made people uncomfortable. What I didn't know was that Saturday night wasn't really an anniversary dinner. It was a meeting about my inheritance. And before that night was over, I was going to discover that my daughter's husband had been planning to take far more from me than money. He wanted my house. He wanted my property. He wanted the one thing my late husband had promised me no one would ever take. And worst of all, my daughter was helping him. My name is Linda Parker. And for most of my life, I believed being a good mother meant sacrificing whatever was necessary to make sure my child had a better life than I did. I was wrong. Sometimes being a good mother means knowing when to stop sacrificing yourself. Emily was 31 when all of this happened. She was smart, kind, and ambitious. And when she was younger, she used to tell me she wanted to become a teacher because teachers make people feel like they matter. That was my little girl. The girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The girl who saved every birthday card I gave her. The girl who once spent an entire afternoon making me a paper crown because she said I was the queen of working moms. After college, Emily met David. At first, I liked him. He was confident, polite, successful, and very attentive to her. He owned a small real estate company with 2 friends and always seemed to know how to make money. He complimented my cooking. He helped carry boxes when Emily moved into their first apartment. He even called me Mom once. I should have paid attention to the tiny warning signs, like the way David always asked how much my house was worth, or how, during dinner one evening, he casually asked if my husband had left me any investments, or the time he looked around my living room and said, "This property must be worth a fortune now." I had laughed. "My house isn't a business opportunity, David." He smiled. "Everything's an opportunity, Linda." I thought he was joking. I was wrong. My husband, Michael, had passed away 4 years before. He wasn't Emily's biological father, but he had raised her from the age of 11 and loved her as his own. Michael had been a quiet man, not flashy, not interested in impressing people. He was a contractor who built houses, repaired old buildings, and knew almost every neighborhood in town. Our home had been purchased when property was inexpensive. Over the years, the neighborhood changed. Restaurants appeared. New apartments went up. Developers started buying everything they could. By the time Michael passed away, people were telling us our house was worth much more than we had ever imagined. But Michael never wanted to sell. He called the place our anchor. "This is where we come back to," he used to say. When he died, he left the house to me, completely. No conditions, no shared ownership, no complicated arrangement. And because Emily was my daughter, I had always assumed that one day she would inherit it. That was probably my biggest mistake. I assumed love would protect things that paperwork could not. After Emily married David, things slowly changed. She stopped visiting as often. Our Sunday lunches became monthly dinners, then occasional phone calls, then mostly text messages. Every time I asked her if something was wrong, she said she was busy. David was building his company. They were renovating their house. They were planning a family someday. Life was happening. I understood, or at least I tried to. Then came the first strange conversation. Emily had come over on a Tuesday evening. She sat at my kitchen table while I made tea. "Mom," she said, "have you ever thought about moving?" I smiled. "Moving where?" "Somewhere smaller. I like my house." "I know." She picked at the edge of a napkin. "You could sell it, make a lot of money, buy something smaller. Maybe somewhere closer to us." I stared at her. "Why would I do that?" "Because it's too much house for one person. It's the same house I've lived in for 27 years. I'm just thinking about your future." I remember those words exactly. Your future, not our future. Not your happiness. Your future. I put the tea in front of her. "Are you worried about me?" She looked down. "Of course. Then you can ask me how I'm doing." She didn't answer. "Instead," she said, "David thinks you're holding on to things too tightly." That sentence stayed with me. A week later, David called. He was surprisingly friendly. "Linda, I hope I'm not bothering you." "You're not. I wanted to talk about something financial." I almost laughed. "Financial?" "Yes. I know this may sound unusual, but I think we could help you maximize the value of the property." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Maximize?" He explained that my neighborhood was becoming increasingly valuable. He said he had contacts with investors. He said the timing was perfect. He could sell the property for a premium. Then, according to his plan, I could buy a smaller home and put the rest into an investment account. "It would give you security," he said. I replied, "I'm already secure." He became quiet. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "You might not realize how vulnerable you are." I ended the call. That night, I called Emily. "Why is David so interested in my house?" She sighed. "Mom, he's just trying to help." "Why does his help always involve selling my property?" "He knows real estate. So do plenty of people. You're making this bigger than it is." I looked around my kitchen. "This is my home, Emily." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." She hung up. That was the first time I cried because of my daughter. Not because she had insulted me, because I could feel a distance growing between us, and I didn't know how to stop it. A few months later, Emily announced the anniversary dinner. She told me David had rented a private room at a beautiful restaurant. "Nothing huge," she said. "Just close family." I was thrilled. I thought maybe this was her way of repairing things. Maybe the distance had only been temporary. Maybe I had been imagining the tension. I bought the dress. I made the lemon cake. I even found an old photo album from Emily's teenage years because I thought we could all laugh over embarrassing pictures. Then she called 3 days before the dinner. "Mom, you don't need to come." I asked why. She gave me that same careful answer. "David thinks it's better if you stay home." "Why?" "I told you. He thinks it'll be more comfortable." "For whom?" Silence. "Emily?" "Mom, please." I felt something inside me go completely still. "Is this about my house?" She didn't answer. That was the answer. I hung up. I didn't tell her I was hurt. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I listened to the part of myself I had spent years ignoring. I opened the old desk Michael had used. Inside was a folder labeled with the name of our property. I pulled it out, and I found something I had never seen before. A letter. It had been written by Michael 2 months before he died. The first line said, "Linda, if anyone ever tries to convince you that you owe them this house, read this first." My hands started shaking. I sat down, and I read the letter. Michael wrote about the property. He wrote about Emily. And then he wrote something that changed everything. He said there was a separate legal agreement connected to the house, one that he had created with an attorney years earlier. According to the document, if anyone attempted to pressure me into transferring ownership, selling the property under false pretenses, or using Emily's inheritance as leverage, the property would immediately be protected from those claims. But that wasn't the biggest surprise. Michael had also created a trust. Not for me, for Emily. A trust containing a substantial amount of money that would become hers on her 35th birthday. I had never known about it. Michael had deliberately kept it separate from the house. His letter explained why. He wrote, "Emily is young. She may one day marry someone who loves her deeply. She may also marry someone who sees her as a pathway to wealth. I hope I am wrong, but if I am right, don't let anyone use the house to get to her." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I noticed the final page. A handwritten note. "Linda, If the day comes when Emily turns against you because someone has convinced her your home belongs to her, don't fight her with anger. Protect yourself. Let the truth speak. I sat at that desk until midnight. For the first time, I wondered if Michael had seen something I had refused to see. The next morning, I called the attorney listed on the document. His name was Robert Hayes. He remembered Michael immediately, and after I explained what had happened, he asked me a question. Has anyone asked you to sign anything recently? No. Has anyone asked for copies of your financial records? I hesitated. Then I remembered, 2 weeks earlier, David had asked me to send him my property tax statement. I had told him no. Robert became very serious. Linda, I think you need to come see me. I went that afternoon. Robert showed me a stack of documents. One was a proposed property transfer. It had been drafted as if I were voluntarily transferring partial ownership of my house to Emily. I had never signed it. Another was a proposed refinancing agreement. Again, my name appeared on it. Again, I had never approved it. Robert explained that someone had apparently prepared documents that could later be used to suggest I had agreed to financial restructuring. My heart was pounding. Who gave you these? He looked at me. An individual associated with your daughter's husband. I stared at him. David? Robert nodded. I felt sick. Can he sell my house? Not without your valid signature and proper legal process. What is he trying to do? Robert leaned back. I think he believes you will eventually give in. I remembered David telling me I was vulnerable. I remembered Emily asking me to move. I remembered the dinner. Suddenly, everything fit together. The anniversary dinner wasn't about celebration. They had wanted me excluded because they were planning something without me. Possibly something involving paperwork. Something involving my future. Something involving the house. I asked Robert what I should do. His answer was simple. Do nothing alone. That evening, I received a text from Emily. Mom, I'm sorry things have gotten weird. David wants to talk. Please don't make this hostile. I wrote back. I am not hostile. I am finally paying attention. She didn't answer. 2 days later, David arrived at my house. He was carrying a leather folder. He stood on my porch with the smile I had seen 100 times. Linda. I didn't invite him in. He noticed. I just want to talk. We can talk here. He looked uncomfortable. Emily is devastated. Why? She thinks you don't trust her. I almost laughed. She wants my house. Your daughter has never asked you for your house. Then why have you prepared documents involving it? His face changed. Only for a second. But I saw it. What documents? I told him. He became defensive. Those are standard planning documents. Why were they created without my permission? They weren't finalized. That doesn't answer the question. He stepped closer. I think your daughter deserves some stability. She has a husband with a company. That company could benefit from having reliable assets. There it was. The truth. Not dressed up. Not hidden. Just sitting between us. I said, You don't want my daughter to have my house. You want control of it. He shook his head. You're being emotional. That sentence made something inside me snap into focus. Whenever someone wants to take something from you, they often tell you your reaction is the problem. I said, Leave my property. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I already made one. He waited. I trusted you. He left. That night, Emily called. She was crying. Mom, why are you treating David like he's some kind of villain? Because he tried to use my property. He was trying to help. He had documents prepared without telling me. He said you were okay with the idea. I never was. Silence. Then Emily whispered, Maybe you should think about what kind of mother refuses to help her own daughter. I closed my eyes. There it was. The guilt. The weapon they had been using all along. I said quietly, I have spent 31 years helping you. You're acting like I've done something terrible. You haven't, I said. But David might have. She stopped crying. Mom, what? You need to understand that he knows what he's doing. I know. He says you're paranoid. I know. He says you're afraid of losing control. I looked at the old photo of Emily on my bookshelf. Then I said, maybe he's right. She sounded relieved. Then I finished my sentence. I'm finally taking control of my own life. She hung up. The next week was quiet. Too quiet. Then I received a letter from an unfamiliar legal office. It claimed someone had raised concerns about my ability to manage my own financial affairs. I stared at the letter for several minutes. I understood what it meant. They were trying a different route. If they couldn't convince me to give up the house, they could try to question whether I was capable of managing it. I took the letter to Robert. He read it carefully. Then he looked at me. This is serious, but it's not what they think it is. What do you mean? They are trying to create a record. A record of what? That you are unstable. I felt my throat tighten. Can they do that? Not simply because they say so. Then why are they doing it? To scare you into settling. It worked. Not because I believed them. Because I realized how far they were willing to go. Robert suggested that I get an independent assessment, confirming that I was fully capable of handling my own affairs. I did. The result was clear. I was perfectly capable. But there was more. The attorney who prepared the false-looking documents had also represented David on previous real estate deals. Robert contacted the state licensing authority. An investigation began. David still knew nothing. And that was when I discovered the second major secret. Emily had not known about the trust Michael had created for her. David had. That meant he had somehow obtained private information about her future inheritance. I asked Robert how that could happen. He said the trust document had been stored in a secure system. Only a few people should have known about it. Michael, Robert, an assistant who had retired, and one other person, Emily. I felt my heart drop. Emily had known. She had kept the trust from me. More importantly, she had possibly told David. I called her. Emily, did you know Dad left you a trust? Silence. Then she whispered, how did you find out? I closed my eyes. Because I found his letter. She began to cry. Mom, please. Did David know? She didn't answer. Emily. Yes. How long? A year. I could barely speak. What did he tell you? She cried harder. He said we could use it to secure a loan. So you knew he was planning around your inheritance. We needed the money. You have a house. And a business. And you were planning to use your inheritance as collateral? He said it was temporary. Did you know about the house documents? Another pause. Then, yes. That single word hurt more than anything else. Not because David had lied. I expected that, because Emily had known. I said, why? She sobbed. Because I was scared. Of what? Of losing him. That answer broke my heart. Not because I understood it, because I did. Emily had become so afraid of losing her husband that she had been willing to risk losing her mother. I sat silently. Then she said something unexpected. Mom, I never wanted your house. I didn't respond. I wanted you and David to stop fighting. You could have told me. I tried. No, she cried. I was afraid. And now? I don't know, I asked. Does David control your finances? She hesitated. That was enough. Emily, open your bank statements. What? Open them. She did. And what she found was the beginning of the end. There were transfers she didn't recognize. Payments to companies connected to David's real estate business. Large amounts labeled as consulting expenses. Some were legitimate. Others were not. The trust money had not yet been distributed, but David had apparently been planning around it. Worse, Emily discovered several accounts she had never opened. She called him. I stayed on the phone with her. I heard him shouting. I didn't hear every word, but I heard enough. You're overreacting. Those are business expenses. You signed the authorization? I did not. You don't understand how real estate works. Then Emily said, where is my money? Silence. That was the moment everything changed. The man who always had an answer had none. Emily ended the call. She was shaking. Mom, I said, come here. She arrived at my house 40 minutes later. She looked exhausted. She was still wearing the same clothes from that morning. She walked through the front door and stopped in the hallway. For the first time in months, she looked like my little girl again. Not a business partner. Not someone's wife. My daughter. She began crying. I'm sorry. I hugged her. But this wasn't a magical moment where everything became perfect. I was still hurt. I still didn't trust her completely. So I said, I forgive you for being afraid. She looked at me. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. She nodded. I know. We spent that evening going through every document she could find. We built a timeline,